TBRI.
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 TOVD.
TBRI.
TBRI, Trust-Based Relational Intervention.
TBRI is an attachment-based,
Trauma-informed intervention
that is designed to meet the complex needs
of vulnerable children.
TBRI uses empowering principles
To address physical needs,
connecting principles for attachment needs,
and correcting principles to disarm fear-based behaviors.
While TBRI is based on years of attachment, sensory processing, and neuroscience research,
the heartbeat of TBRI is connection.
Hello, Justin. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Sarah. It's great to be here with you.
Good. Awesome. Would you introduce yourself and share maybe kind of how you came to know TBRI first, and then we'll get into the work of TBRI with Show Hope second.
Sure. My name is Justin Myers, and I would say first, I'm a husband and a father. So been married to my wife, Bonnie, for nearly 18 years. And then we have two kiddos home from Ethiopia. They came home almost 13 years ago. They are 13 and 14 right now.
Oh my. Okay.
Yeah. And my day job is I'm the director of programs at Show Hope. And our work is our mission statement is to care for orphans by engaging the church and reducing barriers to adoption. So TBRI, really the way that I came to TBRI is through a resource that we're going to talk about today called Hope for the Journey. And I was on staff at a church, and we were building out support for adoptive and foster families. And we heard about Hope for the Journey. And so I said, okay, let's do it. We're going to host this for some families over a couple of Saturdays. And I had read about it on the website, talked with some individuals about it, but really didn't understand what TBRI was until we went through that conference material. But once we went through it, I was immediately captured and thought, I've got to learn more about this.
Man, well, isn't that a thing that you heard about TBRI through Hope for the Journey, which seems fairly ironic at this point. I wonder, I used to work in foster care, and so many people over the years have said my entry point to TBRI was Hope for the Journey. And I do you guys capture those? This is a little bit off topic, but do y'all capture those statistics? Do you know how many first timers heard about it through Hope for the Journey?
I know
that's a lot.
That is not big data that we've captured, but that would be interesting to see that connection.
Yeah, it really is a lot. I believe it's a lot because people tell us all the time that's how they heard about it, and then they start to navigate through to find practitioners and stuff. So, okay, can you tell us a little bit about Show Hope and the programs of Show Hope, and maybe where does Hope for the Journey fall within programs?
Sure. Yeah, so I mentioned what our mission statement was, and really our lane is primarily adoption. We were started in 2003 by Mary Beth and Stephen Courage Chapman. That really came out of their own adoption journey. They adopted 3 girls from China, and then they had families that were coming to them and saying, we would love to pursue adoption. It's just too expensive. So how do we do that? And so that really in 2003 birthed Show Hannah's Hope, which it was called at the time. That was later shortened to Show Hope. And it started with what is still our cornerstone program, which is adoption aid grants. We're still providing those for families that are entering the adoption process. So adoption aid grants, then we also provide medical care grants, and that's a way that we continue to journey with families. So once a family has adopted a child and brought that child into their home, then that child is eligible for this grant that will cover a range of medical needs up until that child is 18 years old.
Oh, wow.
As we all know, children that are impacted by adoption and foster care, they're often at risk of just significant medical needs. So that's just a need that we heard about, and so we wanted to enter into that with families. Then we have another program that's called Student Initiatives. And students are really important to Show Hope. That was a large the voice and the prodding of one of the Chapman girls, Emily Richards Chapman Richards was just really instrumental in pushing her parents to consider adoption. And so we invest in students through a resource called the Pause Campaign, which just helps them to develop a worldview around caring for orphans and vulnerable children. And then the last program, which is really a huge program and concept, if you think about it, is pre and post adoption support. So in that program, we provide TBRI practitioner grants. So we want to help reduce the cost of going through that level of training of TBRI. And then what we're talking about today is Hope for the Journey. So when the Chapmans entered into this ministry of serving families and bringing children home, it really became apparent that the day that a child comes home is not the end of the journey. It's really the beginning of the journey. And families just really needed resources to know how to meet the unique needs of their children.
Yeah, that is so good. Can we talk just really briefly about the way that you guys support practitioners through scholarships? Because it's really monumental and it's incredibly life-changing. I am part of our team that reviews practitioner applications. And there are so many people, whether it's small nonprofits, whether it's, counselors in private practice that truly can't afford the training without y'all's support. And it is just really pivotal to see how that plays out. And I don't know how long y'all have been doing that now, but I think it's something that people take advantage of. And I think it's really, really important in the mission work because we can't meet the needs without having practitioners out there, and we need the right people to be practitioners. So I just want to shout out and thanks to you guys because I see the beginning and the end of that in some ways of knowing like this person's already saying in their application, like, I'm not really sure how I'm going to afford this, but I desperately need it for these reasons. And you're like, yeah, you do. So thank you for that. I know you've been doing it for years now.
Yeah, so I don't know the exact year, but it's been since the early 2010s. So 10 plus years of awarding those grants. And according to our estimates, we've been able to support over 2,000 practitioners going through the training, which just gives us a lot of joy. And I mean, you said this, but it's a lot of people from nonprofits. It's a lot of people just personally paying out of their own budgets from home, or it's church staff, and all of these people are operating on razor thin budgets. And so to add a high quality training that obviously has a cost to it is unreachable for a lot of individuals. So it's just an easy way for us to say this is a practical way that we could be a megaphone for TBRI is to get people trained so that they can take it into their communities.
Yeah. I don't know about easy, but it's impactful. It is. I mean, it really is.
It's an easy yes. It's an easy yes for us. That's what I'll say.
It sounds like it could be hard. Okay. Let's chat about Hope for the Journey, which originated as Empowered to Connect, or the Empowered to Connect conference. Can you tell us a little bit about the history, how it moved over to Hope for the Journey, what that process was like, and just kind of share how it's grown and where we are today?
Yeah, well, through relationship, which obviously connection and relationship is really central to TBRI. The Chapmans met Dr. Karen Purvis and got to know her, and I know she was just really impactful to them personally in their own adoption journey. But then there began to be this organizational connection between Show Hope and the Karen Purvis Institute, and so in 2010. Is when, together with KPICD, we launched the Empower to Connect conference. Dr. Purvis was a huge part of pulling that off, and as well as many other teachers and professionals that were a part of that, and that continued all the way till 2020. 2019, Show Hope began considering a lot of things are going digital. And should we consider making this more accessible to a lot more people and
Mhm.
moving away from an in-person conference to a digital conference. That planning was starting in 2019, and in 2020, they were already planning on doing what was called the Rewind, which had taken the previous 2 years of Empower to Connect and just made it available for viewing. And COVID happened in 2020. None of us knew that was coming, but it was just perfect timing for us to then consider a digital platform, a digital resource. So in 2021 is when Empower to Connect conference became Hope for the Journey conference. So the same heart behind it, the same professionalism, having the KPICD trainers and other professionals as well. But we changed the name around it and made it a digital resource.
Okay, cool. So in the early days, it was a simulcast, right? We would have basically like a news truck outside, and it was not intimidating at all to present on that stage for sure. And we did that for a long time. And now we're doing a pre-recorded with a smaller audience that is then available digitally moving forward. So in the middle or in the beginning, I know Michael and Amy Monroe came in, and then Empowered to Connect the organization. Um, what was that time like as you guys were navigating? I know Show Hope always held the conference, right? But
Right.
it was always called Empowered to Connect, and then we had Empowered to Connect the org. How did all that fit together? Because that's a lot of people working together.
Sure. Yeah. And there's bumps and
Sure.
things along the way, but and I think we can say this about TBRI is that there's no Lone Ranger mindset with this. It really is a community effort to get this training out there, get these resources out there, because as many sectors that touch a child as are impacted by this training, the better. So both Care and Purpose Institute and Empower to Connect would provide a lot of the professional know-how and the research, the presentation skills that would go into the training. But as you can imagine, from an awareness standpoint, talking about Empower to Connect conference and Empower to Connect the organization,
Right.
Sometimes becomes confusing for individuals. So
Absolutely.
really just out of a practical need,
Yeah.
we changed the name of the conference.
Yeah. And we love ETC, the org, and the
Oh,
people
yeah.
at the org. So they're
Yeah.
wonderful, and we all have uh, a shared passion for the work, needless to say. So
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, awesome. So as we look forward to 2025, you guys are still kind of moving in the digital platform or the digital resource direction. What can we expect from 2025? I know there's going to be a few changes coming in.
Yeah, there is. So one of the subtle changes is we're no longer going to refer to the Hope for the Journey conference. We're referring to it as Hope for the Journey.
Okay.
And a large part of the reasoning behind that is the conference approach is one way that Hope for the Journey can be used, but we've seen more and more people using it as onboarding for staff or volunteers at their organization or at their church. We've seen just individuals picking it up and going through it and just getting training hours for their foster care agency. And so there's so many ways that it's being used that it's really an on-demand educational resource. And one of the biggest pieces of feedback that we've gotten from individuals, and I don't think we've mentioned this at this point, but there's a limited viewing window for the conference in the past, which has typically been between April and the end of June. That works for some people. It does not work for a lot of other people.
Yeah.
And so we were having lots of requests for, can I please get access extended? And so we took that feedback to heart, and we've completely changed the platform. Hope for the Journey now has its own website, hopeforthejourney.com. And we are providing more accessible options. So when somebody goes to access purchasing the resource, they can purchase 3-month access any time of the year, or they can purchase 12-month access and use it almost like a subscription service.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a big change. I know when I worked in foster care, I was like sending people as like I would check the website, like where is it, and sending people as fast as I could because that's it was, a lot of churches were charging 10, $15 for the day, right? It was really affordable and it was exactly the information I wanted to have. So now the idea that that's available on a year-round basis is really awesome. Can we expect the same variety of sessions?
Yeah, so for those who are not familiar with Hope for the Journey, really the structure of it is 4 main teaching modules that are centered on TBRI. So introduction to TBRI, connecting principles, empowering principles, correcting principles. Each one of those sessions, they're about 60 to 70 minutes, are taught by a seasoned KPICD trainer. For those of you listening, Sarah Mercado has been one of those trainers. Shameless plug here. And there's been several others as well. So that's still the same. And then we have what are called going deepers, which are about 10 to 15 minutes. And it is what the name suggests. So it's taking one of those principles and it's taking an application point out of that, or just digging deeper into some concept and just spending specific time on that. And then that'll line up with each one of the modules. And then we have what are called practical perspectives, which are about 5 to 7 minutes. And it really just puts a picture to the impact of TBRI on families, on adult adoptees, on foster care alumni, professionals. And then by nature of being a faith-based organization, we've created a 5th module that's called The Gospel in TBRI. And that's really just our attempt to say the principles and the high value on relationship that we see in TBRI is mirrored in the relationship that we see with God and how he interacts with people. And then that informs the way that we walk into relationships with children, but also just with everyone around us, right? Prioritizing connection and felt safety and skills, just interpersonal skills, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's so important because I think it's easy for believers to get caught up in certain scriptures that discount TBRI. And so I love that you guys dig into that and say that, like, this is what Jesus did, so I really, really like that. Okay, so bonus content we talked about, the going deeper, I apologize. Anything else as far as how long is it? So if I'm an org that is interested, what is my time investment to watch the whole thing?
Well, I will. There's a presumption there that you would watch the whole thing. So if you watch the whole thing, no, and that's especially in a conference style, you typically would go through all of it. It's about 7 hours, give or take. If you do all the modules, all the going deepers, all the practical perspectives, that does not include any bonus content. But by nature of it being module and each one of those components, teaching session, going deeper, practical perspective, can be played separately. You can really piece it together by whatever needs your audience has. And then I will add, because I didn't mention this, having this new platform allows us to add more bonus content that could be accessible through the length of their access. So things like sensory integration.
That's awesome.
Things like deep diving on the ACEs. Utilizing TBRI in an educational context, and the list goes on.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's incredible. That's a huge gift. So when people go in to register, it's sort of a choose your journey, right? Like, are you looking for this or this? And you pick, and then it tells you what your options are. Sounds very, very intuitive. Okay, over the years, Justin, do you have any favorite Hope for the Journey stories?
There's this is kind of a hard question to answer. My favorite story is my own, actually.
Okay. Well,
So I love when typically a husband is drugged to the conference by his wife, and she's like, this TBRI, we've got to learn about TBRI, and he's thinking, okay, we're gonna get our foster care hours, whatever.
right.
And then he walks out wanting to lead the charge in implementing TBRI in their home. I mean, those are my favorite stories, really, because it resonates with me as a husband and father. And I'll just briefly tell you this. So when we started talking about how I was introduced to TBRI, the way that we hosted Hope for the Journey was we hosted the first couple of modules on a Saturday, and then the plan was 2 Saturdays later, we were going to finish the content of Hope for the Journey. Well, I went that first Saturday, both as a person organizing and hosting it, but also as a participant. And between that Saturday and the next Saturday that we were going to host, we had a significant family event that involved our kids, and it honestly was the most challenging situation that we'd ever been through. And just the small nuggets that I had gotten out of TBRI that first Saturday was immediately applicable. And it helped me to respond to my kids in just a lot more gracious, understanding way, and to see the need behind the behavior, right? We talk about that, but it was in real life. And that was, it didn't make the situation easier, right. But it allowed me to draw nearer to my kids than I probably would have otherwise, because to be frank, I'm a quick to get hot kind of person. And TBRI really provided me the tools to stay calm, cool, and collected, and connected to my kids. So anytime I'm talking about Hope for the Journey, I am really saying this impacted my family directly, and then I've seen the way that it impacts others.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's taken me a long time to figure out how to do TBRI. It was a hard twist in the beginning. It felt very kind and gentle. And so I think that's a universal issue. I really appreciate you sharing that story with us, because I think it is such a pivotal conference, because I think it gives people, it's kind of like water in the desert for a lot of people that, maybe they don't have access to a practitioner yet, but they do have access to a church that's doing a ministry, right? And so it just opens up an avenue to get TBRI into homes in a different way. And listen, I know this is no small task for you guys to put this on and to manage it and keep it going. I know what it means to work alongside our trainers and with our trainers and to be one. And I know we can be a tricky crew. And so I hope you guys know how much we appreciate everything you do to put this together and to make TBRI accessible to people that may not otherwise have it. So thank you for all your effort and work. It is definitely not lost on us how impactful it is. Justin, man, thanks for being here. What a fun convo. I'm excited to see all the bonus content, because I think the people out in the wild doing the work are the real heroes of the bunch. So I'm excited to hear what they have to say. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
The TBRI podcast is produced by the Karen Purvis Institute of Child Development at TCU. To learn more about TBRI and the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit child.tcu.edu/podcast.